Hello everyone, I'm Vlad Sparastoria, and today I'm reviewing the compact Smith & Wesson Bodyguard revolver. This is specifically the Model 49, meaning it has a steel frame and a stainless steel finish. Smith & Wesson has a rather complicated way of naming their firearms, and this often confuses many people who are new to this world. For a very long time, revolvers were the preferred weapon for self-defense. We've discussed several times, especially on this channel, whether they are obsolete or not. It's a very complicated topic, and in my opinion, many people have misunderstood it. Revolvers definitely have their own advantages. For example, given the same weight and distance, they often don't have a more powerful round compared to an equivalent semi-automatic. Yes, in some cases, a person who needs to have a concealable weapon might want to choose the most powerful round rather than the magazine capacity, even at the expense of the power of the ammunition. These are choices a person can make. This revolver was specifically designed for concealed carry and has the necessary features to be easily carried, hidden under your clothes, but also to be quickly usable in case of need. You don't see this type of revolver around very much, precisely because it's aimed at a very niche audience. You know better than I do, since carrying for self-defense in Italy is almost a mirage for most citizens who need to protect themselves. We have to settle for a sporting firearms license for hunting. That's why defensive weapons, especially those for concealed carry, often don't have much room. Not only in the Italian market, but also simply in content creators' videos. Why don't many people go out and buy them? But we want to test it, so let's move the camera. First, take a close look at how it's made, and then, of course, we'll try it out. The Bodyguard is a very compact revolver, as you can see. The size of this weapon compared to my hands is not imposing at all. But after all, if we want to have a weapon to carry with us, for example, for concealed carry, we necessarily have to make compromises when it comes to the size of the weapon. For absolutely obvious reasons, everything on this revolver is a bit smaller. Let's start, as always, with the markings. First of all, we have the model name. The manufacturer reminds us that this weapon was actually produced in Springfield, Massachusetts, which is the headquarters of Smith & Wesson. And the caliber, this is in South by Southwest Special. We also find the weapon's catalog number. Back when in Italy, of course, you had to have the national catalog, and all these weapons had the catalog number on them. Let's not forget, it's beautiful. Here you can see it a bit better with the right light, the Smith & Wesson logo. The controls of the weapon are very simple, basically the same ones we almost always find on all revolvers. We clearly have a trigger that works in both double and single action. In fact, we can see the double action, but let's also see. The hammer is not completely hidden. It's a so-called shrouded hammer. It's a hammer that's protected by these wings, and it can also be cocked manually. Cocking it this way, I'll tell you, it's not exactly very comfortable, but it's absolutely doable. We'll see this feature a bit better during the shooting test. Then, of course, we have the button that, if pushed forward, gives us access to the cylinder of the gun, as you can see, with 5 rounds. As we said, we can obviously empty the cylinder by pressing the appropriate rod, which operates the star extractor, a very classic mechanism. From this point of view, there are absolutely no surprises when handling the weapon. Before we go shoot it, I want to point out how small some things are. First, the front sight is very large, but the rear sight notches are tiny. I'll point this out several times during the shooting test, just like with all concealed carry weapons, or rather, like with all objects designed for that purpose. It's a specific use requiring compromises for that purpose. Sights stick out too much. These are things that can get caught on your holster, your pants, your jacket, when you draw the weapon and you don't need them anymore. Self-defense situations, assaults that need to be resolved with the use of a firearm are very fast. Those who study these things know that it's essential to avoid as much as possible having a weapon get caught because it's fast, it's chaotic, it's brutal. So yes, maybe I don't have the biggest sight, but it's better not to have a big sight. After all, I have to shoot from 3 meters to defend myself with this weapon rather than risk it getting caught. But whether I have a good view at the shooting range, we don't really care right now about having good aim at the range. Another thing that's very small about this weapon, look right there at the tip, respect, right now. The grip is really small, so it's not particularly comfortable on the weapon. And if I hold it correctly, the trigger is very low, meaning that if I were holding a semi-automatic, I would expect a trigger here just a little lower than where the cylinder is, but here it's much lower, it's really low. This is definitely not ideal for shooting at 25 meters at the range, but we absolutely have to see the weapon in its context. In fact, speaking of the range, let's go try it out. And here we are, finally at the shooting lanes of the Legnano shooting range, where we're going to give this a good test. Let's give it a proper try. Smith & Wesson 49 Bodyguard. Revolvers with a hidden hammer are always unique, as they have a different humped profile from what we're used to, yet still look classic. Actually, like with any revolver, we can open it to load the rounds into the cylinder. We have 5 rounds, and as we've discussed, .38 special. So I'd say let's try like this at 10 meters, 5 rounds. Bam, 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 bam. Okay, obviously once the rounds are finished, we can go empty the cylinder. I need a moment to figure it out. So how does this pistol aim? The sights are very low. The rear sight is almost invisible as always, but the front sight is very, very, very high. Clearly in double action, there's an extra difficulty caused by the trigger pull. I want to better understand how it works. Because I put 3 shots pretty close here on the 10-meter circle, I'll show you later, while 2 shots went a bit high, maybe a bit high. That's because of this pretty big sight mounted on top. Let's try again. Now I'm shooting in single action, as you can see. Okay. You can cock it in single action, but it's a bit uncomfortable to grip it. You almost have to move your hand. At least I have to almost move my hand to properly reach the hammer. Bam. And again, out of rounds. It's quite a particular weapon in the sense that, like all weapons, it was created for a very specific purpose. Here, of course, we're talking about concealed carry. They have clear compromises in their design, especially when it comes to ergonomics. It's not a quick reload. All right, now let me fire a few more shots in double action, which I'm more curious about. Yes, single action works on this weapon, but the hammer is a bit hard to reach. And I almost have to rotate my hand, while if I grip the weapon, the idea is that as a carry weapon, you pull it out and shoot. Now let's shoot a bit more slowly, but let's see. Okay, I still have a tendency to keep the sight up, but I repeat, with this type of sight, it's a bit difficult, even though we're at 10 meters. You might say, that's not much, what are you doing? This is one of those weapons, you know, that you pull out and empty on the potential attacker. You always have to think about weapons in terms of their use. I mean, if you want to go to the shooting range and make hole-in-hole shots at 25 meters, the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard isn't really the right weapon. Oh, let it be clear that mechanically speaking, it's absolutely accurate. It's hard to make an inaccurate pistol at pistol distances. As long as the barrel is rifled, the weapon will almost always shoot well. As many shooters know, it's a matter of ergonomics. Okay, I have 5 more rounds. I want to try to empty them, not all at once, but a bit faster, at least since I have the rascal. So, at this distance, basically to shoot at this speed, aiming is impossible. Aiming becomes an intuitive thing, just pointing the weapon in the general direction of the target and continuing to pull the trigger. Actually, all 5 shots did hit the paper, but on the paper, in single action, it's relatively easy to group the shots, even though a few of my shots went high. A large front sight and a small rear sight notch often cause this effect. As you can see, most of the shots go high because this front sight tends to stick out over this small rear notch. These are the slower double action shots where the tendency to pull up on the front sight as the forearm contracts is clear. A bit of practice improves it, while the scattered shots, especially early on, are usually faster. They generally hit the target. Keep in mind that this weapon is for self-defense. Very short distance, literally emptying the cylinder at an attacker. Not even 10 meters. 3 meters or less is more than enough. Let's say, oh no, more bad guys. It's a weapon that takes a lot of practice. Obviously, as always, one might wonder about the obsolescence or not of a weapon like a revolver in 2025 for personal carry. And not to reopen the debate, but there are many people who continue for various reasons to be fans of revolvers. And that's fine. I know some of the best shooters out there who can carry a weapon and sometimes carry a revolver. No, I'm not here to judge what they do, but they are the best shooters I know. And actually, many people mention the revolver as the ideal self-defense weapon because it's simple. The revolver is more complicated than semi-automatics. There's no doubt that shooting faster is more difficult to handle, especially because of the very long, hard, double-action trigger pull. It has low sights and a small capacity. However, revolvers offer advantages, such as using a more powerful cartridge for the same weight. Okay, but I wonder what place there is for a revolver like this in 2025. At a time when for almost 10 years there have been new generation subcompact semi-automatic pistols on the market. Take the P365 for example, which weighs the same, is the same size, has a much better trigger, and holds 13 rounds. I have to say, revolvers are always fun, those rascals. Ha, ha. What can I say? It's definitely a very interesting weapon. The revolver, as we just discussed, definitely has its own niche. As for personal defense, but here we could really spend hours discussing whether this niche is still valid. I definitely had a lot of fun with this little Smith & Wesson Bodyguard. Thank you all for watching this video. As always, remember that you make these videos, just like the owner of this weapon did. He brought it to me today in Legnano for me to try. Without people like you, these videos wouldn't be possible. To support my channel, consider subscribing or making a purchase. The t-shirts help a lot, simply put, to pay for the ammunition to do these tests. Finally, if you want, you can leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to the channel. It's completely free. And for me, as a content creator, it helps a lot. That's all from this beautiful little revolver. As always, we'll see you next time.